Thank you, Madam Chairman. I do want to follow up, though, from where Senator Johnson was. I mean, I agree that entitlement reform has to be part of the mix. One of the things I find interesting, though, is our revenue as a percent of our GDP is at a historic low. Having been involved in a variety of the efforts to try to find that common ground, all of them have had substantial amounts of revenue increases to try to get us back towards our historic levels. What we did on New Year's Eve was less than half of what everything from Simpson Bowles to every other plan had out there. So the notion that we're going to somehow do this without having revenues as part of the mix, I just, as somebody who's read, I'll match my capitalist credentials against anybody at this dais and job creation credentials against anybody on this dais, and can read a balance sheet, it's got to have a balance. I do want to come back to the sequestration issue, which I've been running back and forth and along with some of my colleagues from Chairman Bernanke downstairs. Everybody concurs. You take this hit in a way that was set up to be the stupidest way possible, you're going to have at least a 750,000 job hit. And what I pressed Chairman Bernanke on was, how deep was your analysis? Was it just, we're taking this much money out, this many jobs? He acknowledged that is only as deep as it went. It didn't go to the point of where, and I think the American public will be even more outraged as we kind of go down the line, how stupid this was set up, where in many cases we will be costing the taxpayer money under the guise of savings. Let me cite 3 examples, and one, Dr. Rawlings, maybe I'd like your comment on, where, like any volume purchaser, we buy more tanks, bullets, guns, planes, you get a volume discount. We will be breaking volume discount contracts because of this. Taking the Navy, 975 separate line items. They're not all of equal value to the taxpayer, but they're all going to take a whack. The idea of furloughing a meat inspector or a poultry inspector, well, you can take that cost to that individual's job. What's not been factored into the analysis is what happens when not as much food gets to the marketplace, and consequently, food prices go up overall. And, Dr. Rawlings, I had one of my good friend Tim Kane's, one of our university presidents in today, and I've heard this from a number of them, as well as folks at NIH, where, and you may want to comment on this, where because of this kind of arbitrary, and I agree with actually Senator Timmy, lack of discretion, and even with discretion, you're still going to have bad outcomes. You will have cases, isn't it true, where you may have multiple years of research where you need that last year to finish the research to get valid results, where you won't be able to issue that last year contract and consequently will literally flush, from a scientific standpoint, the prior year workings. Is that not correct, sir?
That is correct. And with that scientific loss goes something else. Think of most of these researchers on NIH grants as running small businesses, because that's what they do. They're not like me. I teach ancient Greek. I don't have a small business. I don't drive the economy. But these researchers on NIH grants do. So some of them have 4-person companies, think of it that way. Some of them have 12-person. Some of them have 25-person companies doing grant work. So what do you do when you get this cut in the 4th or 5th year of your research? You let go your workers because you can't pay them any longer. So the grad students and the postdocs fall off the research team, and the research team cuts back. The worst of all is not knowing. So I had one professor tell me that his lab is now suffering from sequester fatigue before the sequester begins because NIH has held back on the grants.
Well, again, my point being that I very much believe you got to have a balanced approach. Revenues, I do believe entitlement reform has to be part of this mix. But I think when we look at this kind of top-line number, we're looking at the top-line number as if it was a rational set of cuts. When in effect this was set up to be the most irrational. I use the blazing saddles analogy. When the sheriff comes up and puts the gun to his head, no rational group of folks would allow this to happen, yet we're 3 days from allowing this to happen.